This afternoon, we want to talk about the ballot or the bullet. The ballot or the bullet explains itself. But before we get into it,
make my bum buckle and say something. Watch your face.
Yes, I, Rastafari. Black people, this is Keto Swim with the Black Agenda Report Daily Shot for Thursday, August 26, 2010. And what to go on down in Babylon, me people? Ross is Rastafari and I. Me a come to talk to people them. Excuse me, I'm working on my patois because I may need a new job. And the DEA is fixing to find a few good Negroes. According to a CNN article dated August 24, 2010 by Carol Creddy, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency wants to hire 9 Ebonics translators as part of a request for translators in 114 languages, including Ebonics. The DEA understands the need to have someone versed in Ebonics to conduct certain kinds of investigations. As such, these translators will be used to listen to wiretaps, translate what is being said, and testify in court if necessary. They would be hired in the agency's southeast region, which includes Atlanta, Washington, D.C., New Orleans, Miami, and the Caribbean. They found that Ebonics is no longer spoken by just African Americans, but it has become an urban language or street dialect. According to one DEA official, the use of Ebonics crosses over geographic, racial, and ethnic backgrounds, and in several recent investigations, it has been spoken by African Americans, Latinos, and white folks. What the Ross Clock boy, tell us something new. While this is not the time or place to discuss the adoption of black language patterns by mainstream America, this article certainly brings us to the analysis of Amilcar Cabral, who states that in the people's culture we often find the seeds of resistance. And not only that, but a system of domination must attempt to understand the culture of those in which it chooses to dominate in order to control that people. In this case, people of African descent. True say, ever since slavery, the state has always invested in studying black culture as a means to control black people. What is interesting is that by the time they figure out what black folks are saying, black folks will be saying something else. Simple fact being is how we are. See? And if they're looking for Ebonics translators in the Caribbean, I'm sure they'll find plenty rent-a-dreams willing to serve, you know. And last thing, if blacks in America speak Ebonics, i.e. black phonetics, then what do white Americans speak? Next up, what would Willie Lynch have to say about such a terrible thing? According to a Washington Post article written by Michael Rohn on August 26, National Park Service archaeologists have found 2 cabins in which enslaved Africans lived in the Maryland plantation in Frederick County. The plantation, called La Hermitage, is touted as a mysterious place, as the cabins are in front of the house as opposed to the back, as well as the whips and the stocks in the front. La Hermitage, 748 acres at its height, was established about 1793 by a French family, the Vicendiaris, who came to the U.S. from Haiti right on the cusp of the Haitian Revolution. In fact, they had owned several large plantations in Haiti. While in Maryland, they enslaved 90 Africans, which made them the 2nd largest slave owners in Frederick County at the time. 12 of these had been brought directly from Haiti when they left. This included a 5-year-old boy, an 8-year-old girl, and 2 16-year-olds, one of whom was born in Mozambique, and several adults. The article claims that they were an unusual family, particularly because of the need for an inordinate number of bondservants, enslaved Africans, whom they treated with singular brutality. It claimed that the brutal style of Caribbean bondage, with its French masters, aggressive displays of subjection, and its 90 slaves were extreme for Frederick County, particularly amidst the several slave owners of German descent in central Maryland, where the land and climate called for smaller tracts and populations of 10 to 20 enslaved black folks. The main crops that were grown in the plantation were wheat, flax, and clover, while plantations with about 90 slaves were usually used to grow cotton, tobacco, or sugar. According to archaeologist Joy Beasley, the family may have been trading enslaved Africans or renting them out or trying to recreate the kind of harsh, large-scale slave system that brought them status in Haiti. The article further describes this as a, quote, classic account of slavery in the decades before the Civil War, as a story of international upheaval, racial oppression, family complexity, and perhaps a touch of religious bigotry. Members of the family were actually charged in 9 state court cases for cruelty against their slaves, most of which were dismissed. Now, this article raises several issues and further questions that we cannot exhaust in this time. But for one, the enslavement of Africans from Eastern Africa in the Americas, and in particular the U.S., is an underscored phenomenon which needs to be researched more. Another issue is, was the brutality of the plantation truly an anomaly of U.S. slavery? While slavery was certainly brutal in the Caribbean, and there are well-known accounts of how French tortured blacks in Haiti, by no means does this suggest that slavery was not brutal in the United States. For years, research has debunked this notion. The African Burial Ground site in New York is a classic example of this phenomenon, as bones of enslaved Africans revealed the harsh conditions under which they worked. This just reminds us that we need more people of African descent to work in fields such as archaeology so that we can study ourselves. And on that note, it is interesting that Alex Brueggemann, a 21-year-old Howard University anthropology student of Haitian descent, is a volunteer on this duty. How ironic. This has been Ross Quito Swan with the Black Agenda Report Daily Shot. More time and more fire upon Babylon.